jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
So here with another exclusive episode, I have filmmakers Terence Brown, say hi,
Hello, hello.
and Elvery Tren Peters,
How you doing?
former classmate and awesome extraordinaire.
I do try.
And here to discuss indie filmmaking in Dallas, Texas, as well as their serial killer thriller, Janus, which is coming soon. So, thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having
Thanks
us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I posted the early screener review. It was on the Movie Elite. I don't run the site, but the guy posting it didn't alert me to the fact that it was on there. But I tagged you and one of the stars in it, so hopefully you can spread that around.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'd like to check
Yeah,
that out.
definitely.
So I'll just go around with just something inspirational for all independent filmmakers for us here. Brown and Peters, when you approach a concept for any movie, how much time would you say goes into the planning versus the execution?
Well, for
Or
me, when it comes to like a film, or in particular, it's stories first. Get the creative side done first. Make sure that's straight, and then focus on the production. And so that's when I go into a film, I'm focusing on that first. Like with Janus, I mean, I technically started writing Janus when I was in my script writing class at UTA. So, and I didn't go back to it till like years later. And even when I approached Terence about, making it, it took about a good 2 years to get made. So, I mean, it's a 2-year process, and it was a lot of, it was a lot of hard work, fun. We had a great time making it, but, it was a lot of prep for it, and some things were on the go too, because certain situations arise and you have to work with what you have. But, it was a process. It was a good one though.
And you also take it that it took us 2 years to make it, but again, we're indie filmmakers, right? And so we have jobs also, and so and then things happen, so you have to take that thing into account too. So I would say kind of the same thing that Trent says, though. The writing process is so important because story is so important, and I sometimes feel guilty for how much time I spend on story. And I'm trying to speak. I know people that can spit out the script in, like 5 weeks, and that's not me, because I hash over every word and every phrase, and I hash over, things like layering meanings and stuff like that. And I don't want to spit out a 5-week script. I can, and I have, for a competition, for something fun or whatever. But when you do your best work is when you take your time with it.
Yeah, and like for Janus, for example, I mean, that was originally supposed to be just a short film, but it ended up being a feature-length film. Like the film itself is really, the idea behind it was, okay, I wanted to do a short film that showed a snippet of this world I'm trying to build. the actual scene, the actual film itself was originally just a scene in the film, in the intro of the actual full feature script of the original story. And what I did was I just took the characters, stretched out the scene, and you actually get to learn more about these characters and how they interact with each other, and then just story built from there. And there were many times I was sitting there writing the first draft or second draft. I'm thinking, okay, I need to probably trim this down some. But when you're writing and you're really getting into the story and these characters, like, well, this is the story, so I'm gonna go ahead and tell the story how I have it here, because if I didn't, I wouldn't really feel satisfied with it.
There's definitely a degree of satisfaction, especially when we get to the final plot twist. And I think that just really just comes off. You guys definitely spent so much time just prepping, calculating every shot, making use of the simplicities to just paint a bigger picture. And I can definitely say that whenever I'm prepping a project, I gamble. I say, okay, this one I think we can talk about for 90 minutes. I don't think we can talk about all these other ones for 90 minutes. And this definitely felt like one where you didn't have to stretch it out, because it already landed on its mark. It already stated where it needed to state. It already knew how to flow naturally and just take off, because the landing's already there. It just needs to actually land, and it landed.
I'm
Thank
glad
you.
glad you enjoyed it, man. Like it's like I'm really I am satisfied with the direction of the story for this part, and I know it. I mean, I really the most fun part about this whole project was really just working with the actors, because the actors really, each and every one of them, brought something to the character. And it's always, with any kind of filmmaker, there's always something when you actually see people bring your characters to life. And working with them and the crew and everybody who came on board for the project, that's what I felt made the project run as smooth as it did, even with the issues that did arise here and there. And I think without their input with the actors, I think the film wouldn't have really landed as well as it did, at least for me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would have
Uh,
to agree.
with the cast in here, for those listening, it includes the leads are Dallas Gossett, Bad Kids at Crestview Academy, and then we got Carrie McCormick, Upstream Color and I Can Only Imagine fame. So you already got a lot of just uh, newbies and semi-veterans who are just been uh, really godsend when it comes to independent film, and I
Yeah,
definitely go ahead. Sorry.
it's funny. I sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But it's funny, Carrie, for example, like it was funny. Carrie was actually the very first actor I ever cast when I was still in my acting class, not my acting class, but my film class for intro. The last project we had to do was, of course, make your own little short film, and she was actually the first actor I cast, and that was like a 10-year separation from first meeting her to casting her for this film. And I joked with her about that when I first saw her on set. Like, this is funny. Like 10 years ago, you were in the very first film I did, and when I was still a student. Now I'm out here trying to actually make it, professionally, and here you are again on another film with me. Like, I love how that turned out, because she's just an excellent actor. She really brings something to each role she does.
Yeah, very much so. I'm actually always depressed when I see her in a project and it's like, this is just not worthy of your talent. This guy's totally wasted your time. And here is like, she, just was really ready to just kind of play off whoever the lead was, and just kind of, and it helped that, they're detective roles. So they're used to doing what every detective character does, which is add their own, off color, dialogue, and argue about what is the truth in the mystery, so
Yeah.
And Dallas, I mean, that's one thing he was really good at. Like with me, because I do films as well, and also an actor. So one thing I love is, being given the chance to improv stuff. It really bring different things to a role, and you know when we auditioned Dallas. You know, he really had a mind for how he really wanted to present the character. And then when he got on set, you know, there were many times where we would talk like, you know, man, he was something. I feel like he would kind of do this in that scene or in that situation. I'm like, man, if that's how you feel, you know, go for it. You know, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And then many times he would go into his thing with that character, and that really just added the extra kick to that character that I really enjoyed in his performance.
For sure, for sure. It definitely never felt like anyone was trying to hug the screen or just, you know, have a debate on set. It's like it's very collected, and it says a lot because, you know, I've been on so many other independent film projects where it's just like everybody was just taking their sweet time, and it's like, Jesus, it's been 4 hours. You know, we gotta get something done. This is bad, and it definitely never felt like anyone was just being self-indulgent or not knowing where this was going to go in the next scene. So,
No, they were all great, man. Everybody was great. I mean, we still talk to them today. Many of the people who worked on in the film, and I mean, for future projects that me and Terence are working on. I mean, there's several of them we're gonna have back for those projects. I mean, they're just really good actors and really good people to be around, especially when you're on the set, you know, hours trying to make a film.
Yeah, it's very important to have people on set. I mean, I'm sure you know this as well. It's very important to enjoy the people that you're working with, because shoots sometimes can get to be 12, 16 hours. And you don't want to spend that time on set with a bunch of assholes.
exactly. There's that, and then you don't want to get to the point where they're refusing to do the work, and you're like, I cast this, and so, you know, I get that there's ways around it. You play up to the actor's ego without kissing their ass, or you say, sure, we'll film it that way, but then you don't at all. You know? And so, and Elvery was telling me, Terence, how you'd had to experiment with different cameras to realize, like, okay, this works better for this setup and all that. We don't need this kind of coverage. So it definitely felt like you guys knew your shots. You had your shot list and storyboards all figured out. So it was like, okay, let's just go.
Yeah, I think maybe I would say maybe about 2 or 3 months before we even start shooting, Tren would come by my apartment and we would just sit down and talk and just dream up shots and angles. And we came up with our own terminology for some of these shots that we hadn't seen in films before. And so we just kind of created our own shots and our own terminology for shots and stuff like that. We dreamed this stuff up long before we ever grabbed a piece of equipment and went on set.
Yeah, I mean, hence cinema variety. You know, it's definitely one of those. I just scooped up the pronouncing of that, but yeah, it's definitely one of those. It's just a very free thinking kind of mindset, both the movie and how it's shot. So I think that's definitely why it works the most. It definitely doesn't feel like you're just trying to, you know, get it all done on time. Everything was calculated one way or the
Yeah,
other.
trust me. Like we probably spent more time on this film than we probably really wanted to. But I mean, I really wanted to get the best of it as we could, and like I said, it was a process. I mean, there were times where we had time constraints where we had to deal with the time we had to at certain places, and there were, you know, just about anything you can think about that can kind of happen on a set, you know.
Yeah, as far as time wise,
Especially with getting locations. Do you guys have any advice for anyone trying to do that, and how a location can make or break your movie, let alone you won't always have it, so you got to plan, you know, each shot like you're filming on an actual film?
I mean, you just said it all. Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
How about, you know, Dallas is pretty bad in terms of, you know, you can pay for like a $50 permit, but you won't necessarily get approved for it after spending all that money. So it's definitely vital to get permission for certain private areas and just do a lot of scouting. Do you have any other tips and tricks that you recommend every indie filmmaker just try?
Well, for Janus, we really didn't have to deal with that because, you know, we're fortunate to have people who allow us to use their property and everything. Like
Perfect.
the main house where, you know, called the murder house, that belongs to a friend of mine, and, you know, she was gracious enough to let us shoot there multiple days, and She, gave us just time limits. So what time we can be in the house and when we had to be out the house. So we used what she gave us and got in there and shot what we could. And then like other places, like one location was our cinematographer's house. So we had pretty much access to that anytime we really needed. And then other places were local places where they didn't have an issue with that, and then other places that people allowed us to use.
Nice. So basically, much like what the serial killer leaves behind, the writing was on the wall.
Basically, but like I said, we were just very fortunate to just have people who, were like believed in our project and were willing to let us, run amok in their homes, basically.
But now we all worked on another project, and when we knew we wanted to do this project, our cinematographer David Pellerin, he and I put together some money. We saved up money to rent a cabin to shoot this film, and it's on like so many acres. And so all I'm saying that just to say that, I mean, if it's a place that you really got to have, I mean, just it's part of putting your budget together, right? I got this idea from my mom. It's something she used to do. We used to have this big family celebration every year. And what my mom would do is like the day after that celebration, she would start catching sales and putting stuff in the freezer and stuff, just stocking up, getting ready for that big event. And so I kind of approach financing films the same way. When I know I'm getting ready to work on something, I'll start maybe applying for extra credit cards, and then I'll start catching sales, Amazon, and ordering stuff early because I already know what I want, And I'll order right up until it. So just all year long until I'm ready to shoot.
Yeah, Amazon was very, very. It was a very good friend of mine for Janus.
For sure. And since this involves serial killers, I can't be amiss. What are some of your favorite serial killer books or movies of all time that you recommend other people see if they're going to try and make a film like this?
Well, I mean, with Janus, it's I always tell people, Janus, it's a homage to 80s slashers, right?
Yeah.
When you watch it, you do get that tone, like you can see the inspiration there. There's some Halloween in there, maybe even some Friday the 13th in some areas. But the underlying theme is about child abuse and what abuse can do and drive a person to become. So there's that psychological aspect to it, like what's driving this person to commit these acts. So I mean, I'm always like there's films like, of course, Silence of the Lambs, with Hannibal Lecter. That's a character that's twisted, and there's always even though he's twisted, there's always a method to his madness. There's always he's always kind of playing a chess game with anybody who comes in contact with his character in the film. So that's one film I would definitely suggest.
You guys
is just an
definitely
overall classic.
There you go. You guys mainly, I felt, went for a lot of Dario Argento kind of shots that allow this to not just be another run of the mill hard-boiled cop movie or mystery.
There is a documentary that we've produced also about the making of this film, and what heads up. It's divided into 3 segments, and each segment begins with with sort of a biopic of a serial killer, and we showcase Richard Ramirez in one. We showcase Gacy in another one.
Yeah.
And then the last one we showcase I forgot his name just that quick.
Bundy?
This is the big guy.
No, not Bundy.
This is the big guy. He's like
the co-ed killer. The co-ed killer.
Oh wow.
I think was it the co-ed killer? Was it
He's like 6'9", 290 pounds, 145 IQ.
He was in the show Mindhunter. He's the guy that they were talking to. He killed his
still
mother.
alive to this day. He's still in prison, but he's still alive to this day.
But I think he was called the co-ed killer. I can't remember off the top of my head though. But I think it's what he was called.
Let me look it up. Mindhunter.
But yeah, and this dude, his mind was so twisted, and the reason why we put him in there is because we were talking again about child abuse and things child abuse could do. This dude, he murdered his maternal grandparents and he ripped his own mother's head off.
Yep.
And he says that the thing that he remembered most about his mother is how she belittled him and she beat him and she ridiculed him, and this is why he is so violent towards women to this day. His mother created a
The
serial.
BTK killer.
Is that it?
Gotcha.
No.
Yeah, the BTK killer. But yeah, that's pretty typical of a serial killer. But he was definitely one of the more infamous ones. Is like shit.
And the thing is, though, he was like one of the most friendly people you could meet. Like the cops used to hang out with him.
Sloppy
But
work.
like when I came up with the concept of Janus, it originally started out as an art project because I'm also an artist. So I did this series on duality and basically talking about, everyone has the mask that they wear. You only show people the side that you want them to see. So
Very well said.
yeah, and then I based it off the idea of Janus, which was for Romans, that was their he's always depicted with two heads. He was their god of beginnings and ends of time. And one of the interesting facts, 'cause I also love history, one of the interesting facts about him, like even though each Roman had their own individual god, every Roman had to pray to him first.
So there you go.
So like I always wanted to, tell a story about a serial killer. And, at the time when I started coming up with this concept, Dexter was a big thing that was still around. And I enjoyed the show. I also read the books, which I highly recommend. If you enjoyed the show, read the books. They're way darker and also funnier.
Oh damn.
But I said I want to tell a story about a serial killer, but I don't want to tell a traditional story, about a guy that's just sociopath who just goes off and just murders people on, when they get that urge or whatever. I didn't want to do something like Dexter, where he's a serial killer that goes out and kills other killers. But I did want to explore something that dealt with the mind, like what drives a person to do these things, what drives a person to commit these acts. So and abuse is a major factor in many cases that drives people to become violent people. So I started coming up with the concept, of this backstory for this character, and the different things this character went to earlier in their life before they hit this stage where they just become this, mass killer in a sense. And go on, sorry, go ahead.
And very well said, because I mean, most serial killer movies and shows these days kind of like to just go for the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, mentality.
Well, but that also applies to this. Like Terence was talking about the behind the scenes stuff we did, and I even mentioned in that like at Dr. Jekyll, I can't remember the exact quote I said, but it was always
said, all the things that no matter what he did, it was still him.
It was still him, yeah. I mean, even
Right.
when Mr. Hyde came out, that dark side, that's still a part of him. That's still him. It's just a side he either didn't know he had or was in denial of having. So, with this character, in his mind, even though I don't want to go in. Well, yeah, I'll go in more in depth into it like that. I always think about what all do I want to tell, because I still want, still haven't really got it out to the public yet, so I still want people that have some mystery.
Well, we'll probably air this episode around January, February, so I mean we've got time.
Oh, that's perfect. So in the mind of the killer in Janus, he does go after people who abuse or neglect kids, but in his mind, even if whoever's in that vicinity of that area or environment that child was affected, even if you're just a person crossing into that area, going to meet somebody, in that house or whatever, you know, if the killer finds out, even for a split second, thinks you did something that could incorporate to that, what happened to that child, you'll become a target. Even if
Right.
you had never, done anything that would justify a person doing the things he does to people. So I mean, that's the thing, yeah. And
Everyone
mean,
that attributed to the environment of this abuse is culpable.
Right.
basically, but
Yeah.
also it's like, in many cases when you think of a person who abuses or, neglects a child, or whether it's physical or sexual or anything like that, most people, at least how I think, most people tend to think whatever happens, if something bad happens to that person, they have it coming, because you violated a child.
Right.
But at the same time, when you add the other element of these other potential victims in there, this shows escalation. You got to ask yourself, is he really doing it just to, get a twisted sense of justice for the child, or are they doing it because, they're sociopath? Are they enjoying it? Do they have a need to do it?
Exactly.
And does this character escalate to something even worse than what they already are?
Right. And none of the actions here ever feel redundant. It's like you already know it's leading up to something that's going to be way more tragic outcome.
And that's shown just with, just how the killer, physically perceives himself. How, the mask the killer wears, the outfit, the mannerisms, everything. It's, like I said, there's a method to the madness, but at the same time, where does that madness end? Is it a madness to continue evolving, which again goes back to the escalation aspect.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All, sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We may talk about video games,
Music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yes.
I am the master storyteller
Yes.
of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers,
Yes.
the Google Play,
Yes.
Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ. We
Ah.
gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say
Ah.
all that good fun stuff.
Well. you.
Yeah. don't run the listeners away, Pete.
Ah, I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen, and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this movie.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going
How
to be a
did you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. Whether one last plot holes or gratuitous movies, it's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
We now continue with our program.
Just on a lighter note, so you guys did your research for real life killers, and
there's something
ones.
else. Yeah, like one that I did want to talk about going back to it and everything. You know, one of the biggest things about this film is, you know, the idea of morality, and even like going back to the killer, you know, his mindset, you know, it's the question is morality. You know, morality in many people's eyes or certain people's eyes is in the eye of the beholder, as some would say. You know, people's morality changes from person to person.
Exactly.
And one of the things about this film, with every character, there are no black and white characters in this film. That's one of the things I really wanted to stress in the writing. You know, everybody has something to themselves. Even the characters you think are, let's say, the most innocent of the characters. No, there's something to that character. Is just like in real life, there are no people aren't black and white. We're all gray, which goes back to the idea of duality, which is one of the main concepts of the story. You know, you only show people a side of yourself that you want them to see, and that goes with everybody from common people, the people in politics, people at work, school, every structure of society. Everybody has different facets of themselves. And that's one of the things I really wanted to showcase with the story, is that just because one thing seems one way is not really the case. And when this film starts, you really get to see that as you go along with each character in the film.
Exactly. Barbara and Trevor are, all the time when they're not problem solving, talking shit to one another. They just don't have any positive way to talk about it other than I need my coffee and this better be good. Because
yeah, Trevor has that's what's the thing about that character though, because him and Barbara are, they were partners and they get called back together on this case, but it's opposites attract, right? So
Exactly.
you have one character who really cares about the people or the victims and really wants justice for them, or wants them not to be, wants their story to be told or something like that. And then you had this other character, I mean, that's Barbara. Then you had this other character like Trevor, who it's not about the people, the victims. Yeah, to him that sucks. They were killed. That's bad. But his mind is, but what about this? What about the person who did it? Why did they do it? And how did they do it? The whole puzzle about that. That's what his mind's stuck on, is solving that puzzle. Going back to like Sherlock Holmes, for example, if you actually read any of the original books, you really get to see that, for Sherlock, even in today's shows, like, Cumberbatch's version to the American version with what's his name, Johnny Miller.
Law and Order, Criminal Intent. I'm just joking. Anyway, that's
yeah, exactly. I mean, I was a big fan of Criminal Intent. I mean, going back to that character, with him, it was all about the puzzle. He wasn't a people person. That's why he had Eames. Eames was the people person. He was the one who got into the killer's head. And to the point, if you watch that whole series, people start questioning him. He gets so well into these minds of killers that, well, what about you?
How are you so good at this?
Exactly. Or even if you watch the Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes, in the first 3 series for that, there was that question. He gets so well into these killers' minds, they start questioning, how are you so good? What about you? Because there's when you come across a character or a person who is like sociopath, who's crazy.
Exactly.
When you have
one to know one.
Yeah, that was saying it takes one to know one to a degree. And when you have somebody who can profile or really get into the head of a killer, some people, that freaks people out, because how can you understand something like that? Most common people can't understand the mind of what drives a person to do crazy or depraved things like that.
Especially if your mentor later turns out to be a cuckoo his own self. So there you go. It is definitely one of those where it's just like you are being judged while you're judging other people who are, scum of the earth, and you're just trying to figure out what they're going to do next, why they're doing it.
Yeah. And that goes back to just criminal profiling, like when they do stuff like that with the FBI, that's why people are in today's society are so good at catching those kinds of people nowadays, because they do get into the minds of these people, because they have to understand, by understanding or seeing how they tick, they're able to predict or come up with situations where they can try to catch this person. Exactly. Or stop them from doing another crime. But going back to Sherlock, going back to that character himself, he for him, it wasn't about the victim. Like I say, even in the newer version, they do show that. It's more about the puzzle, the crime. The person who did it. And how they put it all together. And that's kind of how I kind of molded Trevor's character. He's not really a people person.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you get in his whole demeanor when he talks to people, except for Barbara, really. He's just not there. And then there is a point in the film where he does try to show, empathy and come across and show concern, and it's legitimate, but it's only because he's really around Barbara again. He's around her. She's like, again, opposites attract. She's that piece that you know offsets and also fills in the other parts that he has missing.
Exactly.
That's why in their backstory they work so well up until a certain case that just she had to go do something else.
Exactly.
I mean, the man has vodka and a cigarette on the balcony for breakfast. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, it was his day off, so he might get a pass for that.
Breakfast of champions. That's the breakfast of champions.
Yeah, but yeah. So there's different facets to each character in this film, and I really wanted to showcase that, even down to the clothes they wore and the colors they wore with their clothing. I'm an artist, as I said, and color speaks volumes about people and their personalities and how color affects us just physically. So every color that each person wears in this film is deeply connected to their personality and who they are. You have one character who their outfit is gray because they are in the middle. They're not necessarily neutral, but they're in the middle of a change. They're
exactly.
They're coming from a dark point to a muddled point where they're getting there, they're getting clean, or they're getting better, but they still got some dirt on their shoe. And then you have a character who's typical black is color and void and mysterious. There's shows that darker element. And then you have other colors too, like that from how the house is colored. When you walk into that house and you look around, it feels like this is a place where some bad stuff could actually happen one night.
There's a lot of earth tones, and then some of those earth tones they morph into this passionate red, and
yeah, exactly,
the perfect house.
Exactly.
And like the house belongs to a friend of mine, and when they first bought the place, when I first walked in there visiting one day, I was like, this is the perfect place to shoot a film like this, because I could literally see, it's a nice place when you're visiting and everything, but I could literally see people getting killed in this house. Hopefully that never happens in real life because I love my friends, but that house looks like that. It just had that aura of it, like. Yeah. And even when I was writing the script, and I'll admit that I wrote the script as if we were going to shoot in that house, and thankfully she said, yeah, you can shoot in the house. She gave us, like I said, gave us time, gave us a time limit of when we could be in the house, and and when we had to be out and everything, because they do have a family and wanted to respect that. But it was a perfect location, and it just had everything.
And since it's vital to, again, getting what you need to have filmed, it's very collected. There's not much traveling around. You just have to have everybody get there on time and be ready to shoot whatever scene you're going to film. So now that we pretty much just covered location and influence and modeling the story, just going on to the next portion, what can we expect from you guys in the future that you definitely want to tackle, since you clearly are comfortable doing this?
Okay. So originally Janus was just going to be just like one and done. I mean, the original idea was just basically really proof of concept. Shoot this, and then use that as proof of concept to hopefully do a bigger film, or even possibly a series if that were to happen. But that was the original idea, and still one of the main goals is to do something bigger with it. But what we're gonna do, we've turned it into a little series of our own. Like Janus is the first film of 6 that we're gonna be doing.
Awesome.
The
We're
second
building what we
film is
call
called
the Janus verse.
the Janus verse, what we're calling it. The second film is called Lucid, which is written by Terence. And Terence, you want to talk about that, man? Talk about where direction of that kind of goes.
So Lucid, originally Lucid was, I had a friend of mine that that was just going through some stuff. And he says, man, I was in film school at the time, and he was like, man, I got some shit for you. And he just told me about the last like 5 years of his life. And I was like, dude. And so that's where this film came from. And it's based off of, you know, what he told me. Of course, I'm like a Rob Zombie fan, so I take shit to 10,000, you know. And so I pushed the story to 10,000, and it was supposed to stand on its own. And it's again, it's about addiction, and it's about choice, having a choice. And I wanted to move forward with it, but I was like, man, it'd be cool, because we had already decided that between the three of us, Tren and Pellerin and myself, that we were going to work together on each other's projects and just, you know, pooling our resources and get each other's projects done.
Right.
And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we tied these two into a full universe? And we could tie these things in, because I was thinking of names for a character, and I was like, man, I like that name, Plies, and that's one of the characters. Pals. I'm sorry.
Pile it on him.
Yeah. And I was like, I really like that name. And so I just kind of came up with this idea, let's link these films. And Tren had already been talking to me about some other films that he was planning to do, and it just kind of morphed into this whole universe. And it's kind of this idea like, you know, the movie VHS.
Anthology.
They're independent films, but they're all linked together by overarching theme, you know. You know, an anthology, yeah. But I love the way that the guys that did VHS, I love the way that they put that together.
Right.
And so something in that vein is what we're going for.
Yeah, like
cool.
With the Janus verse thing is like, what I really want to showcase is like, even though we're doing these 6 films and not every story is necessarily about Janus, you know, the killer herself, but there are, you know, ties to it. Like basically,
the killer is a major influence in all of these stories.
In some form of fashion. I mean, I wouldn't say he's not a major influence in every single story, but there is a connection. Like the setting for this place, for these films, I call it Danvers City, and it is like a metroplex similar to the DFW. So you have these you know, different types of, you know, neighborhoods and parts of society kind of, you know, blended and mixed together. So basically, you'll see in these films, like, you'll have different stories, like an anthology of films to a degree, but to kind of like you mentioned with the VHS thing, you have this overarching theme. But with this, you have an overarching city network of people and how they, you know, live in the city, and how this city itself is also a character. And with Janus is the first one. When this killer comes along, you know, it kind of brings attention to this location. And then you start to peel back with these next films, you know, just kind of what kind of place Denver is, and maybe why this killer kind of fits in the society, and also how people in this and how people in the society live.
Denver is gritty, and Denver kind of feeds on its own, and it feeds on itself, and
exactly
that's how these films reflect the city.
And then the second film is Lucid, and the third film is called White Rose, which plan to start, production on that in November. And, in that film, I bring back a minor character from Janus and add a new character in it.
That's
and
cool.
and what you see, you have one character who is dealing with the aftermath of events that transpired connected to Janus, and then you have this other character who isn't has ties to it to a degree, and you'll see that in the story and with the relationships that that character has. But at the same time, it is also their own contained story.
Yeah, they
Like,
have their own set of unique problems and circumstances to overcome outside of the whole Janus thing.
but at the same time, with the events of the story, you're also hearing, like you're getting news reports, and news reports and different things happening with Janus in the background. So even though he's not like on screen or is centered around him, his
He
presence
still has an influence on the story.
exactly. He still has an influence there. He still has a presence there, and then so that's the connection for that. And then as we go along, there are 3 more films after that. And the goal is with the last film to be a documentary style of film, inverse film that ties all of it together, even the films that aren't necessarily really connected to Janus or any other that kind of aspect. Because in the third film, there is a different element to the city of Denver and to certain class of people in that city that's also explored in subsequent films before we get to the documentary one.
Damn. Okay. So that's cool that you felt like it was possible to go that route. I'm currently working on a hitman and prison themed trilogy. They have nothing to do with each other than their themes, but you decided to go the extra mile. I was like, okay, all these characters are going to connect in some way, whether it's the city, the cops, or the killers.
I mean, go think early Tarantino, right? Think Pulp Fiction, think Reservoir
Right.
Dogs.
Characters are gonna be referenced, but you don't really know until rewatch. Oh, they're the brother of so and so.
Yeah, of course. Our stories are, well, most of them are linear. I will say this: White Rose happens. The story of White Rose as a whole takes place before, during, and after the events of the first 2 films in the series. So in that case, some parts aren't necessarily linear, but for overall, you won't have all that back and forth like with Pulp Fiction and stuff like that. You'll be able to sit and watch the film. Okay, I've seen this film. I see how that one clearly ties with that one. It'll be cohesive, and you'll tie into what will actually go along in most cases.
Gotcha. Anything else to be on the lookout for from you two? Like, you do a lot of teaching. Terence, what do you do outside of filmmaking?
I'm a teacher as well.
Okay.
I'm also an artist and a musician. I do a lot of my own music for my films. I have been working with a buddy of mine. We've been talking about doing an album for the longest, and
oh man,
so far we're at a rate of making maybe 2 songs a year.
Well,
so at some point, before I'm 80, maybe we'll have an album.
I'll wish you the best on that, because it's easy to play. It's not easy to get picked up, and
right. Well, I wouldn't want to get picked up anyway, man. I love when it comes to music, man. I love the underground, and right now it's too easy. You don't need a label, man. We got the internet. I'm already ASCAP member, and I got an account with the Library of Congress. I already have music on Pandora and Spotify. You don't need a record label. Just need to be able to sell yourself. So.
Sell yourself, mail, network on your own and stuff. You can do wonders with that if you know what you're doing.
Gotcha.
And like with me on my end, besides filming, I'm also an artist. I am currently working on collaborating with a friend of mine on a series of paintings. we plan we plan after, you know, pandemic and stuff kind of dies down to actually put a show for it, do a show for it, and
Woo!
then we want to the goal is whatever we if we're able to sell any stuff from it, make money from it, we're going to use that, donate it to a, you know, some kind of cause or something, because you know, we want to make sure we give back and, you know, support causes that we believe in, particularly when it comes to people of color and stuff like that. And I'm always doing art and stuff like always doing art, but that's something that definitely working on right now. Really look forward to doing once this pandemic dies down. We kind of get more back out in the public. Um, I'm always writing. Gonna be working on another script soon. I'm also writing a book. Well, attempting to
Nice.
write a manuscript. You know, to keep my mind going. Also
Perfect.
working on, man, there's a bunch of things I got trying to plan and got coming up, but mainly right now it's the film and the writing is what I'm focused on, and the art and the painting. Yeah.
Perfect. And since we pretty much just tackled overall just what keeps you going and what motivates you to make art, let alone film, do you have any other just words that you just want to leave with everyone, just saying that, you know, given the different avenues and different ways movies can be made now, you know, why anyone should just still try it out, even with the pandemic and controversies that are going on?
Well, it just depends on you. I mean, even though we're in a pandemic right now and it's crazy, it's been very hard on many people. You know, it doesn't take away your creativity. It doesn't take away your mind. You know, as long as your mind's working and you have a passion for for this, whether it's film or, you know, art or, you know, music or whatever. As long as you got a passion for it, you can always continue to do it.
Said
that never stops, and, you know, keep being creative, keep moving, trying to keep your mind focused and moving forward. You know, you can do anything if you really try. And it's
Yeah,
not easy, and it is not easy.
No.
We'll be the first to tell you it's not easy. Even doing the things we've done and things we plan to do, it's not an easy trek. Um, there are many obstacles that come in your way, but again, if this is your passion, this is what you love to do, this is what you really want to do,
Right.
that stuff shouldn't stop you. There, you know, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain if you just keep to the process and keep pushing forward.
yeah. I was gonna say just let your passion guide you. I mean, anytime there is an obstacle, through your passion, you find a way around it. I tell all my students that no matter what field that you go into, whether it's I'm a filmmaker, but I teach engineering. How crazy is that? So I tell my students is that as long as you use your creativity, uh, creativity and passion, it's all about solving problems. There are always going to be problems, and how creative are you at solving them? And you can do
Exactly.
anything you want to do when you want to do it. You just got to have the passion, and you got to let that passion drive your creativity.
And also know that even though you may strive for perfection on something, it's not always going to be perfect. But as long as you keep pushing and learning from that and keep bettering yourself and learning and going, things typically turn out better for you that way, at least in my opinion.
Exactly. I've had to learn the hard way is like, you know, there's everything else. So don't, you know, the unprofessional people I've dealt with, don't, you know, talk smack about them and don't give them a moment of your time, and don't, more or less, just make your own game plan. Don't do the whole, I'm going to wait on someone else to do this and that. And it's like, okay, approach it like you manage an office, you know, just
Yeah, I agree. Yes, sir.
instead of the whole, oh, we'll get it done when I think about getting it done. It's like, okay. It's
And
not a
you
plan.
know, it's also like, you know, something that my mom said my whole life, and, you know, I truly believe it because I've seen it. You know, if one door closes, another one opens for you if you keep pushing.
Exactly.
And there's, you know, I've had doors slammed in my face. I've had doors open up. for me, and
it's rough.
Just keep moving forward. Yeah, it's rough. But just keep moving forward, man. Just keep doing what you love to do, and eventually something will turn out.
Right. Keep making connections. Stop doing the whole I'm gonna stay in my own little space.
And you know, sometimes that's I will admit there have been times like that too. You know, that's been hard sometimes because, you know, sometimes you want to, you know, stay in your comfort zone. And I've even tried pushing students, you know, when I teach art, you know, I'm telling kids, get out your comfort zone, you know, try something else. That's the only way you're going to grow. And, you know, I'm a victim of that too. I think everybody's been a victim of that at some point. You know, you get so comfortable in that lane or that zone that you don't want to move or grow out of that, but you got to, you know, push yourself. And that's the same thing with this. You know, it's not always easy, you know, when you're trying to make something, and
totally,
you know, things happen, but keep moving forward, man. I can't say that enough.
Essentially it. You know, I've had family members who want to, you know, talk about stuff from the past that annoys them, and I'm the kind of guy, I just move on. I say, if you're going to just gloat about it and not learn from it, then, you know, there really isn't any point of this, let alone having this conversation. That's how I am about film. You know, I see people talk all the time about experiences they love or hated, and it's like, yeah, and what do you learn from it? And then it's an awkward moment of silence. It's like they didn't learn anything from it. They were just having too much fun or too much wasted time.
Yeah, we had a hell of a lot of fun on Janus, but you know, even though satisfied with the film, there are many things still that I wish, you know, we could have, you know, tightened up here or gone back and shot that, you know, but.
And it's always going to be that way, unfortunately. It's always going to be like, you like this, I don't like that, but I would redo it if I had the chance.
Yeah, but you know, you just take that, okay, so I was able to do that on this one, or I made a mistake on that. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I know now when I go into the next thing, okay, I made a mistake on this one, I learned from that, now let's take what I learned and put into this and go forward. Because even though I'm happy Janus got done, I'm really excited about moving forward to the next things, because I honestly feel those things will be even better than that. And that keeps me going.
Exactly. Well, I was impressed by what you pulled off. I was just glad to not be watching Something by Trauma or Maverick Home Entertainment. And, and you guys really did make use of the plotting and the just the twist, and let alone just involving the audience in it. So
you helped out too, man. You helped out.
I donated props.
Yeah, man, you helped out in those, but hey, you helped out with those.
Thank you.
Those helped out, man. Because hey, props ain't cheap neither, man.
All right, props to me for giving props. Thank you. But no, I mean, honest to goodness, I would have never known those were even those said props. You know, you guys were using very Hitchcockian camera angles, and you did a good job. It didn't feel like this was an ego project or just something that didn't know where it was going. So
it was a labor of twisted love, because the character is a twisted individual. It was a twisted love affair.
Well, I mean, really, and I do think someone is going to take away something by this, because there's going to be an audience for, especially, you know, serial killer, crime, horror mysteries, and doing a genre mashup and doing some plotting like that really does pay off, instead of, I thought it was cool at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope when, you know, we actually get it out there, more people can actually see it.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up